Okay, you ready? Because we can edit this part.
Yeah,
Welcome to, I forgot the name of it already.
raw talk.
Welcome to Raw Talk with
Dr. Cami.
and Brandee. So,
Yay.
Dr. Cami, I had an idea today
Okay.
of talking about the new fads occurring with feminine and masculine energy. And
Interesting.
I have been seeing a lot of different posts on Instagram, and I will see men say, if you're a divine man, then you will lead so your woman can follow. But I
Oh,
also see posts with women who say men will only step in their power if you lead. So I'm curious what your beliefs are around this with your education, your background, and all the clients that you serve
Mm,
as you're an acupuncturist and a life coach and a spiritual coach.
yeah.
So what have you been seeing around this topic?
Well, I think it's interesting that the word leading seems to be a theme because we're like stepping into your potential. Because can you imagine if everybody stepped into their potential?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really, the world would drastically change. But stepping into that role is as unfamiliar and scary, and we're not taught a lot of that stuff either. Um, I see a lot more like if so the I see more like a male masculine energy is the physical world, right? And that's the protector, the domain
Mm.
kind of thing. And then the feminine energy is more the intuition and the spiritual. And so when you have them together, whether that's within yourself or with your partner, when you're letting that person lead or that aspect of you lead um, the parts of you or the relationship that is divinely called to within those masculine and feminine energies. So in the physical world, you know, men tend to be more of a protector, or the masculine energy is more of a protection. You have to step up, you have to protect. And then you go to the feminine or your female and you ask, what do you think? Connect to the divine
Mhm.
and let me and help me figure this out. And it's more of a partnership versus like a hierarchy of following,
Yeah.
right?
It's
And I
interesting
think
because
it's
as you're talking, I'm thinking if I was an audience member, what would I say to your comment about, the men are the protectors and the women are the intuitive. And I can hear a man going, well, men are also intuitive.
yeah,
So people tend to do this all or nothing concept of if Dr. Cami says, men are physical, that women can be, but the reality is it's intertwined within each of us. So a
mm-hmm.
woman is 70-30, so she may be 70% very intuitive, but that 30% of her is masculine, in which she will be the protector or the nurturer, right?
Yeah,
And the man, though very physical, um, can also be intuitive. But we're talking about honoring the roles of what people are good at. Are we on the
right.
same?
Yeah, well, and then you can take it from the microcosm to the macrocosm. You can go within one individual person that has that's the yin and yang, right? We have the masculine and the feminine within us, but it's also present in our external, outside of our being world. And
Yeah.
so you can look at it from either or, like when it's within you, it's the law of three. You have to take action, but you also have to surrender for intuition to come in to give you the guidance for which actions to take because the potentials are too overwhelming. And that's what anxiety is there's too many options or too many things and I don't know which path to take. So you can use it within yourself, but it's also like you can see it out in the world too. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk from I'm a therapist, so the therapist perspective, and I'm a,
Yay.
spiritual teacher, oracle medium. And the one theme I've been noticing with my clients. So I talked a little bit about Instagram and the themes I'm seeing on there. I really do think our phones are listening.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm
They
all talking
are.
about divine masculine,
Yeah.
and next thing you know, there's all this divine man showing up talking about what to do for women and what not to do, and then women
Yeah.
going, what to do for men, and so what I started doing is asking the man and asking the woman. So versus having a woman say what a man needs or what a man says a woman should need, I've been asking the men and the woman, what do you think your role is in a relationship?
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. And so men have come and there's a huge agreement on the protector and the provider. That's my role, protector and provider. And women are like nurturers, we're nurturing, but they all, it's like protecting and providing in different ways, right? And so my thought has been, like you said in the beginning, is if a man and a woman or partners, but we're talking masculine and feminine energy right now, if they showed up for themselves, then they would naturally hold space for each of their partners to feel safe. But when we start telling an opposite sex what they should be doing or not doing versus asking, then that's already causing trouble.
Yeah. I
Right?
agree.
But there are themes, and it's very interesting because when I'm talking to my clients, the men really talk about they don't need as much gratitude for going to work. Like if they go to work because if they feel like they're providers, they're providing. So that's my job. My job is to go to work. Though we've been male, females have been going to work. It's been a dual working environment for at least since World War II, right? But men, when I ask them, do you feel like you need to be told thank you for going to work? They're like, no. I said, what do you need to be thanked for? Doing housework. And I'm like, and women it's almost like what I've gotten feedback, doesn't mean for everybody, is I don't really need thank you. I mean, it's nice to be like, you're a badass, you got this. My
Yeah.
wife can
You're a good
multitask on
mom.
multiple levels more than I can. Though I have to do this little side thing. So many of the men, when I bring up multitasking, get mad when I say men don't multitask. They're like, yeah, we
Mm.
multitask. And then I say, well, what happens when you get home? And then they go, I just get tired. And so I think research has shown that women have a capacity to multitask on another level than men can, but they still can multitask, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
women say, I don't need as much thank you for doing that at home, but I need acknowledgement that I'm doing both. Like I'm not just doing the home responsibility, I'm also working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like partners forget, right?
Yeah.
So when I watch these videos with the initial discussion is I want to say to everybody, just pause, be the divine man, be the divine woman, know yourself, so then you can then hold the space because so many couples compete.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I watched this video on Instagram the other day with Chris Rock from years ago, and he was like, stop competing. Relationship, you guys want the same thing. Your relationship. I'm like, why weren't we
Yeah.
listening 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Right?
It's
And
crazy.
now,
Well, even yeah. Sorry. Yeah, it's the Tesla's law of three too. He says if you understand the law of three, you understand the universe. And that's, action, destruction, and surrender. Those are the three pieces to any movement, right? So you have a goal, you take action on it, you completely let go of your own agenda with it, you get inspiration and you move, and then you get stuck and that's how that all moves. And so I always think about it like with a relationship, it's supposed to be you and your partner against the problem. And then in the world, like with work and with things outside of the family, well, you still bring that partnership into all aspects, but it's you and the divine against the problem.
yeah.
Right. And you have to have that trust in your partner, trust in something outside of yourself that will guide you to the next step, to the next potential
It's
possibility.
interesting. You call it the law of three, and esoteric teachings, they talk a lot about there are three ways to live life. You're either regressing, stuck, or progressing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And they might be a little bit different concept, but if we, like you said, address those as a couple, as a divine couple,
Yeah.
then as a team, not against each other or competing, or there's a lot of he doesn't love me or she doesn't love me if.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like they should know what I want. A lot of expectations and mind reading. I'm like, how about we just be transparent? What do you think about I'm kind of jumping over because I want to come back to the law of three and how it fits into those three, regressing, stuck, and progressing.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to what do you think about transparency in relationships? Because it seems like if people don't want to be transparent, like I'll sit here with my couples in session and they're fighting and they're competing and they're saying the exact same thing, but they're not listening, they're not being transparent, but they're being defensive and reactive. So what is your take on having transparency in a relationship that's seeking divine relationship, divine unity?
Assessing triggers, and look, I always go back to chakras because that's a way of looking at psychology, which really resonates with me. And so when you go through the chakras of, okay, so root is fear, sacral is shame, solar is anxiety, heart is grief, voice, or is throat is jealousy, third eye is, am I crazy? And then crown is there is no God. There is no God.
Wow, yeah.
And so when I hear these things and I'm like, oh, that's out of whack, or that one's opening and these other ones aren't. And so it would be coming back down to the ground level of yourself, and how you take in the world influences all of those other things. And how we've taken in the world so far has created trauma. It has, and it has to, so that you can step up into a different potential of yourself, into a different version of yourself that you want to be. You have to address all of that stuff and say, okay, I am going to be vulnerable and I have to speak this because it might just be something inside of me that's been triggered, right? So I'll give an example. So when I got with my partner, there was many nights where he wanted to stay up and play video games or watch TV, and I was so tired that I would go to bed. And I would just stew in there and be like, and I had to do a conversation, like a therapy session with myself, and go, okay, he is an adult. He does not have to come to bed when I do. I'm tired. Like, why does it matter? And I finally got to the place where it wasn't rejection. And that's where I was feeling. I was feeling rejection because that's my past. That's my experience with men. And so my ex-husband would stay up all night and be in front of a screen. And there was a lot more pieces and more actions behind and around that confirmed the rejection piece. So then that one thing that my new partner, my husband now, is doing was not all of those other things, but that one piece was sending me into those reactions and those feelings. And so I was inside my head. And when I finally kind of explained it to him, I was like, I don't know why I feel like that. Like, I shouldn't be upset with you. And I am. He was like, oh my idea. Like, he was shocked. He wasn't upset. He's just like, oh my gosh. And so it was like, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself, first of all, and say, okay, this is mine and I have to work through this. And then you have to express that with your partner too.
And then your partner has to help you feel safe that you're allowed to express that and not personalize it or taking it as an attack. That's another thing in my couple sessions that I was discovered is so many clients, men and women, not just one or the other.
Yeah.
A partner asked them a question, they assumed they were being attacked. So when I tell my clients, just take it as your partner's just asking you a question. They're like, oh, so just answer the question. I had a client go, I realized that I'm not being attacked. My wife is just asking me a question and I just need to answer it.
Yeah.
Right. And it goes back to all the stuff that you just talked about, which I really want I would love to use this example if you're okay.
Yeah.
And I would like to break it down a little bit more for our audience because I think it's going to be important for them to take this to their own process.
Okay.
So name again the chakras and the names and the emotion tied to them. And then I'm going to ask you questions, if that's okay, using the example you shared. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So please name for me the chakras. So the root.
Oh, you want me to give you the I'm not going to give you the Sanskrit names because I only know a few of them off the top of my head. It's Anyway, root is Muladhara. There it is.
So, but the
Yeah,
root, we'll just do what most
yeah,
people know
yeah. Root
here
is
in the
fear,
local. Okay, and
fear.
then
And I'm off baby brain. I'm at like I'm on weeks of baby sleep with 3 children.
yes,
So my brain's
people can
more.
relate to that.
Yeah.
Any moms out there can relate the lack
Right.
of sleep for children. Okay,
It's wild.
so root is fear.
Yep. And then sacral is shame. Solar plexus is anxiety. Heart is grief. And these are when you have blocks. These are the emotions, which we all have them.
Yeah.
Throat is jealousy.
Okay.
Third eye is, am I crazy? With like a question mark and a real like concern.
Okay.
And then crown is, there is no God. So if God, that name or anything associated with it makes you go, ugh, then the crown
Yeah.
chakra is blocked.
And that's a whole other maybe discussion we can have in the future. We can put down on our possible raw talk conversations.
Yeah, I think it's a deep one. Yeah.
What does that even mean? That crown and God, and especially, in religion and dogma, it creates a lot of stigma and trauma. So we'll come back to that.
Triggers. Yeah, triggers. Yeah.
And people want to just avoid it, right? Not
Yeah.
understanding the fullest concept of what God actually means or could mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take your example of your husband being outside or your partner being out playing video games and you going into your bedroom stewing. So imagine yourself being in that. I'm just going to go through what you just shared with us. So I'm going to go back to you. When you're laying in that bed and you ask yourself, what is my fear right now? What would have it had been in that moment? You named a little bit, but as
rejection. And it's an interesting, it was probably being alone, like fear of losing and being alone, even though consciously that's not really a concern of mine anymore.
maybe
but
even a fear of a repeat of past relationships. This is why triggers
yeah,
are so important to process, because our past will trigger, the energy of it will trigger.
right.
But I always say there are great opportunities for us to grow if we can move through them.
Well, they're
If we
gifts.
can move through them. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to look at all aspects of life as a gift. And so if you're being triggered or if you're having emotions, it's like, ooh, self-exploration. Where'd that come from?
I have an opportunity to grow. Woo!
Yeah. And how do I empower myself from it? It's not a hindrance. I always say that you have a built-in helicopter mom system.
Yeah.
It's a love and it's a protection. It might be toxic love. It might not be, but it's stopping you from getting hurt or from doing something that's going to hurt you because you've been hurt in the past. And so it's like a built-in, and you have to go, okay, mom, I'm fine. Like, it's okay. I can handle this. And then you have to work through that piece because it's just protection.
And that's where this esoteric teaching of, is this say, oh, I'm afraid, I'm rejected, I feel I'm gonna be alone, or we're gonna have a repeat of the past. Then you say, is my thought process keeping me stuck, regressing, or is it helping me progress? And if you can work yourself through the chakra system, then like you said, it will actually help you move through and progress, not stay stuck or regress, right?
Yeah. It's another system that's built in to build on itself. I mean, you kind of have to always cycle through in different ways because that's just life. But once you understand how the system works, whether going up or down, you can do it both ways when you're starting from the bottom up. But you grow into your potential.
Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert on,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on Kabbalah, but when you're talking about this, I am a Kabbalist. So I've done, studies and stuff through the Modern Mystery School. And the Kabbalah, you start at the root, essentially Mother Earth, Malkuth, and you work yourself up, because the more you clear and you understand yourself on this foundation, the more expansive you can see the world. Right. So we can start here, but if you don't have the clarity, people call it drop-ins, and as the audience gets to know us, I'll talk about drop-ins or things like that. But that can work to help with the block. But if you're stuck at the bottom 3 with the earth, you might not even allow that to come through.
Right.
So,
Right.
I'm agreeing with you from a different perspective of Kabbalah, which is the tree of life, which is said that is within all of our DNA, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. I mean, if you look at how, I know we're going to get back to you want to do examples of stuff, but if you look at how the chakras work, so we take in the earth, we take in the world and our experiences, right? And that creates, do we have stability or not? Right. And then it moves into, and then you slowly move up into your sense of self. And so how you've been treated in the world and how the world has treated you, right, creates your sense of self and how that internal dialogue goes. And then when you really start to love yourself, that moves into the heart, and you can start doing unconditional love to other people. You can speak better. You can have clarity, and then you have inspiration from that top one. But from the other aspect, when you've worked through those initially, which is important, and you have an understanding of all of that, and you can kind of start to tell which one's out when, depending on the day and the mood and all that, then you can go from the top up and you can take inspiration in. You can see the vision you want. You can speak what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this goal. I've got this aim, this purpose. You start to feel like it's a real possibility in your heart. It becomes who you want to be. And then as you move down, it becomes how you birth it into the world and how you change who you are.
Beautiful.
Right. So it can go both ways, but you really do have to, go head first into the problem.
Yeah.
You're afraid of being alone. Be alone. I'll test to it. It's fine. Because if you're working on self-development, like, it's great. Being alone helps you get there. And then, if you're afraid of being broke, look at your finances, look at your liabilities, look at your weaknesses, and dive right into them and make them assets, make them strengths through mentorship.
Maybe it's the same concept you were doing with you right now is, so we're asking you to walk through the chakras with this experience with your partner, because so many people have experiences with their partner. But you can take the same concept and work it with your belief around money, right?
Yeah.
So what is your fear around money, right? And then work up. So anyone out there, go ahead and take this modality if you have a fear of money, and work through it. Because if you knew that you were going to always work through a problem and not fight against it, how much easier would it be?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's scary, but I think it's scarier to stay stuck. I don't know.
Yeah.
To stay stuck or regressing, no, I'm good. I would rather have some movement.
It is. But that's because you've built a trust system within yourself. So you have to trust fall into your own spirit. And that's why having some kind of a faith in, like, the universal energy that weaves us with the stars, whatever it is, doesn't have to be the word God, because that can be triggering. And it was for me.
So God, Elohim means multiple gods. Like, hopefully we'll dive deeper into, there's so many teachings, right?
I mean, we could take apart this talk so far and make 16 of them, but
that's true.
But you have to, once you start, you have to trust that there's a way. The only way through, or the only way to get where you want to go, is to go through, and you have to trust that there's an end to your suffering. So for me, with that situation, like, there was an end to the fear and the rejection, because
I want to pause you on that just for a second, just because I don't want you to give away. I want to go through to see how this would apply, because when you do chakra clearings, you eventually want, like you just said, that flow up and down, that movement, right?
Yeah.
That people look down at your chakras and be like, yeah, I need to work on that. And not be stuck in it all the time. So you name the fear of rejection, repeating the past. What about your sacral? Did you feel any? You said shame, and when I do a sacral clearing, I think they're moving upstairs. I don't know when I do, because I'll do cleansings. I'll read the auras. And when I read them, I normally can read a trauma that's attached to it, and I'll bring it up, and then we work through that trauma to clear each chakra system. So in this one, it's about relationships.
I would say for me, it's probably shame around my past of a minimum standard when it comes to relationships.
Ooh. I wonder if it's still tied into the fear, though, because when we have that, I think that people, not just women, I can speak as a woman, is sometimes we tend to, I think men do this too. Matter of fact, I know men do this too, because, I'm a
Yeah.
therapist with men as well. But they don't say anything because we have been taught, don't say anything unless you have nothing nice to say.
Oh. Mm.
If we say that to our children, it really does seed in. Well, they get married and they're just like, well, I don't want to hurt my wife's feelings. I don't want to hurt my husband's feelings or my spouse's feelings or my partner's feelings. So I'm just going to shut up. I just want them to be happy. So that transparency gets stuck there. And it's almost like telling that younger version of you, you know what? It's okay to say what needs to be said. You can still be nice about it and cordial. You don't have to be a butt face about it, right? But I thought about this with a lot of my clients, how their voices, men and women, are so restrictive, and it goes back to don't say anything unless you have something nice to say.
I think that that's been programmed in because why would you do that? I mean, if it, why, if you look back to, I think it's changing, but
Yeah, sure.
parents, it's like you can't criticize your parents. Like what, and I think more people are starting to own their mistakes around their kids to show it's okay to make mistakes. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay to call me out if I did something that, whatever it is, because I don't parent with my ego. I try not to parent with my ego because it will
The
get
ego
crushed
sneaks
every
in there
day.
sometimes.
Yeah. There's an abusive relationship that you love, and it's with your children. They can be butts. But I always laugh because I'm like, any other context where someone acted this way to me.
You're like,
But
no, not gonna happen.
yeah. So I think that and then when you do try to speak your authentic self, you're met sometimes with that resistance. And so you're programmed. We're programmable beings,
Yeah, so we have to
and then,
deprogram ourselves. Is this what we're not
yeah,
talking about, I guess, in some ways, is deprogramming the belief that a woman has to be responsible for a man's growth and a man has to be responsible for a woman's growth,
yeah,
versus each of them being responsible for their own and being transparent,
right,
and the desire to be a divine. And we didn't even define divine. I think most people know what divine means, being the best versions of ourselves and being willing to grow and to expand and do what's right, ethically, morally, and with value. But if we just stood in our own and we're able to hold space, really hold space, but still accountable space. I think
yeah,
partners need to be able to say, what you said, I want to challenge that. Let's talk about it without getting
yeah,
defensive or shutting down. But anyhow, so I think it's deprogramming is what a lot of our
yeah,
topics might be about, is really thinking outside the box and how do we want to be better? How do we want to expand? And not believing everything that we hear or see on even what we're talking about. Please challenge it, please, get your own
yeah,
opinion. But so your shame, I want to go back to that because I know we only have about 10 more minutes. So your shame was around how you behaved in the last relationship, but it sounds like you weren't able to use your voice then, or you
yeah.
maybe didn't set your standards because you were told you don't do that. And I'm not sure where it came from, but please your husband,
Mm,
just let him be, versus talking, or the fear of being met with resistance. Like, it doesn't
yeah,
matter what I say because then they take it as an attack, versus
right.
criticism for growth.
Right. And criticism, I think, needs to be destigmatized as a very good gift to get.
Right.
It really is a perfect, and it's funny how hard it is to get when you're like, okay, I like it now. Give it to me. Like, give me something to work on. Because
Right.
I can sit inside my head and I'm like, okay, what else can yeah, I just think it's great. Like with work and everything, it's like, why isn't this working? Tell me. Because I
Yeah.
have got like a kink for self-improvement now, but
Nothing wrong with
I
that.
think that also you do get crushed when there's two things. When you're with someone and you're just with them because you don't want to be alone, or if you feel like, well, this is as good as it's going to get, then okay, then
Yeah.
you're like settling,
Yeah.
because your soulmate is not going to act like your soulmate is out there waiting for you, but you have to raise your standards so that they can step into your life. They're honorable.
Yeah.
They're not going to be with you when you're with someone else. Like, you have to face that fear of being alone so that you can grow and raise your standards so that that person can come in, and you're not you know, and then you're challenged also. So the moment that you do that, the moment like I left my marriage and I was alone, it was like, well, what about this? Is this person? What about this person? And you can feel it and you're like, no. And then instead of going, but okay, I'll try it, you're going, no. And you stand that and and you create that boundary within yourself. And it's almost like solidifying it. So then you're like, no, my minimum standard is up here. No, I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want every conversation to turn into a fight. I don't want to have to constantly try to translate how I speak and how my soul speaks and how I move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Again, we can go off so many different things here. This is a beautiful, I think, is this conversation, because so many people are just experiencing this inner chaos. So when you work through what we just worked through, two of your sacrals around the belief systems and negative thought forms when your spouse was out doing the video game and you had to do the work inside.
yeah.
And I know we're
And
there.
literally, I'm just laying in bed. I mean, it's not like you have to go out and spend money and do anything more. It's literally calming yourself and observing what's going on. And you're just watching it going, okay, I feel this in this part of my body. It's mirroring up these memories. And instead of bringing shame, blame, or like rolling over because, oh my God, it's so embarrassing or whatever it is, you go into it, you hit it head on.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like you go past this cloud and you're like, oh, there's the clarity. Okay.
There it is.
There
Okay.
it is.
So with that, let's move to your solar plexus. So
Okay.
you moved through the fear, you named the fear, you named some reasons why you might have felt shameful and what you know, didn't want to repeat. So what about your solar plexus? You name it, the emotion is anxiety. So were you feeling anxiety with this whole process, and what was it?
Well, it's sense of self as well, like your internal sense of self and how you express yourself is solar plexus. And am I good enough to have this joyful experience that I'm having with this other person? Like for me, he's my soulmate. He's my person. He's it. That's all I want. And so then when you're having all of this like triggers of rejection, your sense of self gets shaken and you get a little anxious because you're like, well, maybe I'm not his. And that's not true. Right. So
Do you think it goes back to the anxiety that this is an opportunity when you feel all this, that you start to ask yourself why? I always tell my clients, when something comes up, ask why. So you're
yeah.
sitting in there and you start fearing it. It's like, is he my soulmate, or F it, why am I with them? And then you pause and go, stop. Okay, why am I feeling this way? Where is this coming from? Why? And then you find a solution.
Yeah.
Right. And then you said earlier, anxiety, which could be multiple things. You said like multiple options. I I say feeling crazy is the inability to make a decision. I say
Right.
anxiety is the fear of the unknown or spirit coming in. That's another topic. Right. But how did you decrease your anxiety? Like, did you have to talk through it and say, like, name it and then find a solution and realize, wait a minute, you're taking this out of proportion? Or
Self-love. I'm like, well, I'm awesome. Like, what the hell? Like, you know, of course he wants to be with me. Like that doesn't make any like logical sense.
all right,
Even
so
just on
deconstruction.
paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like on paper, I mean, I'm like, okay, I'm this and this and this and this and the mother of his children and yada, yada. And like all of these things. And it's like, I try to give myself 110% in my spiritual, my mental, my physical, my emotional being, because if I'm good in all those areas, I'm good for the people around me. And so there's no, as you say, and then I always think of you too, because you helped me through a lot of my divorce and different things. And when my partner came into my life, you were like, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but you said, just say this mantra that if there are red flags, I trust I will see them. And like something simple like that. And there's none. So stop looking for them and just trust that if they're there, that you'll see them. And so like that's the conversations that I had with myself. And I was like, this is silliness. But it's okay
That's
because
true.
yeah.
We see. I know our time is coming to an end, so I want to end. We didn't get to your heart yet, and maybe that's something we can bring up our next meeting, or our next coming together. But I want to say this, because I think you said it just well. Men and women communicate a little bit different, as you know. And the one thing, again, through my research, through my clients, is men have a tendency to, they just are straight to the point, and that's it. Are you upset? No. Women will continue to go, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? We have to trust if they're a man in our life, if they say they're not upset, they're not upset, right? Or I'm fine. Okay, now I get we can go all the way into to those who don't really speak up yet, which is it's not good, right? They just do it because a happy life, happy wife, which we don't want. But initially, getting them to know that you can trust them. Women, on the other hand, we like to talk in circles, and that's okay, but we talk in circles to find our solution. So
Yeah.
if you're in a male-female relationship, whether it's a friend or a lover or a spouse, men like short answers from what they've told me. Again, remember I asked, I'm not guessing here. From the majority of those, women just want to be heard in their thought process. So if a man just holds space for a woman and does not say, you already said that. No, we know we already said it. We're just saying it 10 more times because we are processing it through our head. Whereas if a man says it, normally they've gone some internal thinking and they said it. So often you'll have a man text a woman will text a man this long, really long paragraph and forever. And
Okay.
the man's like, sounds great. Not that they don't care. It's just they feel like you've already solved it or whatever. So don't take it personal. Women, we like to talk in circles. Men like short answers. So if we can adjust a little bit to meet in the middle,
Yeah.
then I think you'll get a lot further than trying to change the other person.
Yeah. And I think that there's a good practice I recommend too, because men like touch and women like talk. And so at the beginning of a relationship, everybody's touching and talking, and it's wonderful. And then you get into it and you're like, good Lord, she won't stop talking. And well, he wants, like, if you want to touch and she wants to talk or whatever it is. And so I recommend that you do foot massages like once every couple weeks, once a week, whatever it is, because in my experience that helps men open up to talking, and because they're getting the touch piece and you're connecting on multiple levels. And notice also when your partner has stopped talking or when you've stopped talking, then there's some serious stuff that needs to get addressed, whether that's within yourself or within the relationship. Because
I think that's some great advice. I'm interested in where our raw talk goes next month.
Yeah.
But I think this was great. And if this is out there, go ahead and make comments. Subscribe and like. I don't even know yet. I'm going to stop recording if I know how.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot